Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Be Still My Soul. And today we're looking at Psalm 46. Psalm 46 is a psalm of confidence, assurance, security and hope. It has comforted people down through the centuries, and it's been the psalm, I think, which has most comforted me in times of difficulty and trouble. Martin Luther wrote a very famous hymn based on this psalm, which became a bit of a battle cry during the Reformation. Many people think that this psalm is, the context of this psalm was 2 Kings chapter 19, when a very large Assyrian army gathered around Jerusalem and besieged the city. And God wonderfully and miraculously delivered Jerusalem from the Assyrians. The psalm says, in essence, this: if you make God your stronghold, then you can be confident and fearless in the face of the worst troubles and the worst times, because you are safe and secure in Him. You can be confident and fearless in the worst troubles, in the worst times of uncertainty, because you are safe and secure in Him. In verses 1 to 3, the psalmist describes God as the stronghold that we need. We all face times of worry in our lives, times that and situations where we are anxious, where things seem uncertain. Well, here in the psalm, the psalmist tells us not to worry and gives us reasons why we shouldn't worry. And we shouldn't worry because he points us to the God who is and can be our stronghold. Verse 1, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. In the Psalms, the psalmists speak about God not in impersonal ways, but in very personal ways. And here, the psalmist is talking about God as a help. He's a help to us because he's a refuge for us. He's a shield, he's a shelter. Not that he provides us with a refuge, but he himself is our refuge. We are like little chicks, and he's like a mother hen under whose wings we find help and refuge. And he's a strength. He empowers us to live. But more than that, he's the strong one and we are weak. And when we're weak and we're vulnerable, we can run to him who is stronger than us. And because he's a refuge and a strength, we can find help in times of trouble. And here in the psalm, he talks about the worst situations that you can find yourself in. He says in verse 2, therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way. Earthquakes. Though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea. Though its waters roar and foam like a tsunami. Though the mountains tremble at its swelling. He's imagining the worst catastrophes happening on earth. And he's saying, even if the worst things happen, even if the world falls apart, if God is your strength and refuge, you don't need to worry. And why don't we need to worry? Because of the security that we have in God. In verses 4 to 7, the psalmist talks about the city of God. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. The city of God is God's people. When you become a Christian, when you put your trust in Jesus Christ and his death for you on a cross, you become part of God's people. You become part of God's city, his kingdom over which he rules. And the amazing thing about God's kingdom and God's city is that it's not just that God dwells with it, but that God dwells in it. God is in the midst of her, verse 5. She shall not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. You see, this city is a city under siege, and yet it's a city at peace. And it's a city at peace because God is in the midst of her. And if God is in the midst of the city, what can shake the city? What can move the city? See, mountains can be moved, kingdoms can be moved, cities can be moved, but God can't be moved. There's nothing solid and secure in life except God. And if you have rested in God, then you will not be moved because he will protect you. He will make you secure. That doesn't mean that you won't face any problems and troubles and difficulties in life, only that he's with you and in you when you do. And so no matter how bleak your prospects are, no matter how overwhelming the opposition that you face, if you're part of the city of God, you will not ultimately be harmed, but you can only triumph because God is in the midst of you. God is in you. He's in us by his Spirit. And that helps us, therefore, not to worry. You see, it helps us not to worry because even if we have lots of difficulties, no harm will ultimately befall us. You know, a lion doesn't fear a flock of sheep. So you don't need to fear the difficulties around you if God is in the midst of you. You can be secure because your ultimate hope is not found in your circumstances and your situation and the things that you have, but your ultimate hope is found in God himself. So finally, in verses 8 to 11, the psalmist tells us about how we can make God our stronghold. We don't do that by relying on ourselves, but by relying on him. And how do we do that? Well, he lifts our eyes to God and reframes our situation here. He says, verse 8, "Come behold the works of the Lord, how he has brought desolations on the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire." The psalmist says, God alone brings peace on earth. He's done it in the past. He continues to do it. It's his job. And then he tells us about God speaking. And he says this, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." You see, God will bring a blessing and a peace to the nations of the world when he's exalted as king over them. And what should we do in response to our great God? To seeing who God is and what he's able to do, we're to be still and know that he is God. That means that we shouldn't be anxious, we shouldn't get stressed, we shouldn't complain, but we should relax. Like chickens, little chicks under the wing of their mother hen, we should rest secure. And the way that we rest secure is by gazing and meditating on God and on his Son, Jesus Christ, who loved us so much that he died to make us part of his kingdom. And we are to focus on his love for us until the Holy Spirit comes and empowers us and gives us the peace of God which passes understanding. And he will do this because, verse 11, he is the Lord of hosts. He's able to do it. He's powerful. He's the Lord of angel armies. And this Lord is with us. And he's the God of Jacob, our fortress. He's not only powerful, but he's loving. And he loves people like Jacob. People who are rummans. People who don't live as they should. If that's you, he wants to make his home with you. He wants you to make him your refuge and strength, so that no matter what happens to you, in times of trouble, you don't need to worry, because he's your help and he's your deliverer. Thank you so much for tuning in and reflecting with me on this wonderful and comforting psalm. Till next week, God bless.